Hey guys, everything new under the sun. Well, this is potentially a bit of a shorter video, but I want to talk about gold and silver. A couple of articles here from Zero Hedge speaking about countries pulling gold, storing up gold, and the fact that gold and silver are effectively quite cheap right now compared to fiat currency. Very, very cheap. This particular article, I want to look at another article first here. Ronald Storfurl, gold is dirt cheap right now, and this is a good thing as a hedge. This is a good backup measure. This is a good way to store value in the case of an economic collapse. In the event of an economic collapse, you know, where we're not going into the 7-year tribulation yet, where the Lord isn't returning, but you know, immediately. This is something that is very good for you to have an investment in. Fresh from releasing his exhaustive 230-page annual report, In Gold We Trust, Stoufferl joins us to summarize his forecast for the yellow metal. Gold is extremely cheap right now in dollar terms, he says. When you account for inflation and etc., the price of gold is actually very cheap. He sees a bull market beginning for precious metal, one likely to build momentum as the next long financial correction arrives. We're at the beginning of a new stage of a bull market. We see a massive correction with a big drawdown, but we're seeing the commitment of traders' reports suggesting that there's been a washout. We're seeing the sentiment is really negative. We're seeing that nobody really cares about gold and mining stocks, especially about silver. Silver, interestingly, is probably the biggest contrarian investment. I.e., it's the thing that is most contrary to be invested in right now. It's the thing that most people aren't investing in right now. And so if you want to go against the flow, swim against the stream, you know, swim against the flow of the water and against everybody else, basically, well, you'd be getting silver, because most people are not getting silver right now. But it's effectively, you know, dirt cheap right now. We all know the herd behavior in the sector is getting more extreme. I think it has got to do with the career risk in the financial industry, so nobody wants to make a contrarian call. Nobody wants to swim against the flow. Once we go above this 1360 to 1380 resistance, we also see a neckline. This is speaking of the price of gold and the chart head and shoulders pattern, which is also the neckline of a large inverse head and shoulder formation, rather. I think gold will hit $1,500 to $1,600 pretty quickly. The most important thing is, in comparison to all monetary printing that we've seen in the last couple of years, gold got significantly cheaper. Interesting statement here. Gold in monetary terms is dirt cheap at the moment. We're basically at the same levels like in 1971 when it comes to gold backing of the US dollar. So gold is a bargain at this level. And this is, you know, all fiat currencies collapse, all empires collapse. There's market corrections all the time where there will be effectively a repricing of fiat currency to precious metals, gold, silver. And the most undervalued asset right now that most would agree, especially Gregory Mannarino, if you follow him on YouTube, is silver. And no one's really talking about silver much these days. You know, there hasn't been a lot of price movement, nothing exciting in the area. But silver is quite unnoticed, undervalued. And if you want to have an asset that pulls you through to the other side of an economic collapse or significant crisis, silver is one of those things. The price of silver and gold could skyrocket. You know, even and it may not. It's not as volatile as cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrencies may increase by the end of the year, just like they did at the end of the last year. But there hasn't been anything going on with cryptocurrencies lately either, of course. He speaks about this. We should not forget that stocks have been trading at close to all-time highs, that real estate has been doing really well. The bond markets have been doing really well. Cryptocurrencies have been kind of stealing the show. And so people aren't looking at gold and silver right now. And that means they're cheap. They're dirt cheap. So get into them. And ultimately, they're safer than cryptocurrencies, because gold and silver you can physically handle and own, and that is a great store of value. It's always going to be worth something, whereas cryptocurrencies could go down to zero at any point in time. So this is this is a great article describing why gold and silver are good investments right now. And silver is so cheap, and it has the ability, it's undervalued compared to gold historically as well. I think it's like 60 to 1 ratio right now, where historically it should be around more like 20 to 1. It's been a while since I looked at those numbers, but the valuation, the ratio is well skewed right now as it relates to silver versus gold. And silver is very, very undervalued. So go get some silver right now. That is a great investment. It's a great savings if you're saving up for your retirement. It's a great way to save money. It's always going to be worth something, no matter what ups and downs occur. And it's a good investment. Now, looking at this one here, countries around the world have begun pulling their gold from U.S. vaults. The United States of America is beginning to lose its reserve currency dominance. Countries around the world are working to find ways to circumvent the U.S. dollar when it comes to trade and settlement. In addition, nations are requesting their gold holdings stored overseas to return home. So no longer are they happy to just take U.S. dollars and leave the gold in the bank of the U.S. They're pulling their gold back. So reserve currency status does not last forever. Here's the reserve currency status of various countries through the years as they've held it for a number of years. You can look at here, Britain kind of almost has what looks like maybe tied with Spain as the longest reserve currency. And we're here with the United States. You think the United States is going to outlast Britain as the world reserve currency? I kind of doubt it. Turkey has been the latest country to request their gold as they pulled 220 tons of gold out of the Federal Reserve System April 19th, 2018. So this is most recent gold pulling. And what is left in the Federal Reserve System? That's an interesting question. But Turkey is now out. They've pulled all their gold out. The country's 220 tons of gold is valued at $25 billion. Turkey has followed countries such as Germany, Netherlands, Austria, Belgium, Russia, China, Azerbaijan. With regards to bringing their gold home, Turkey's President Erdogan, Erdogan, that's the way you pronounce it. Tayyip Erdogan decision to withdraw their gold was an act of trying to prioritize the nation's currency. He recently urged the International Monetary Fund to pay loans in gold instead of U.S. dollars. Many countries are moving away from the U.S. dollar, which is inevitably going to collapse the U.S. dollar as the world reserve currency. That's going to happen soon. It's on the downhill slope right now. You've seen the videos about 1929 and the buildup, the repeating of history, etc. This is all happening, and one of the ways to bet against or to insulate yourself from an economic collapse is to store up gold and silver. It's going to be valuable. It's going to be helpful for a little while yet. The Bible does speak of a time when people will throw their gold and silver into the streets because they won't be able to eat it, so it'll be worthless to them because they'll be starving. But until that time, it's going to be valuable, and it's something you can put your money in that's not going to be worthless, in 100 years. Whereas the U.S. dollar, if you put $1 million U.S. dollars in a bank account and waited 100 years, it will effectively be worthless. So putting your money into hard assets is smart. He goes on to quote, "These debts should be in gold," this is Erdogan, "because at this point the carat of gold is unlike anything else. The world is continually putting us under currency pressure with the dollar. We need to save states and nations from this currency pressure." And that's so they're getting outside of the manipulation by putting their money into gold and silver, basically. Even though Turkey has drawn lots of attention with regards to pulling its gold from the United States Federal Reserve System, as mentioned above, they are not the only nation currently wanting to bring their gold home. And I think once all the gold is gone from the Federal Reserve, that's really the point at which the U.S. Collapses. They've got nothing left. It's not a secret that there is lack of confidence with regard to the U.S. Treasury's claim that it currently holds 261 million ounces of gold in Fort Knox and other locations. On top of that, the official gold reserves have never gone through an independent audit. A lot of people believe that the gold isn't there anymore. On top of countries requesting their gold back, nations around the world are trying to avoid the U.S. dollar. And there was Many countries are getting out of it here. Countries such as Russia and China constantly accumulate gold with the rumored plan to create a gold-backed currency with the ambition to dethrone the United States as world reserve currency. Yes, that's right. This will trigger an economic collapse if they actually succeeded with this. Another countries such as Iran have recently issued a statement that they will also be moving away from the U.S. dollar and start using the euro as its official currency. Clearly, the lack of trust in the Federal Reserve is not just a libertarian crowd anymore. A growing number of countries continue to pull their gold holdings from U.S. vaults to attempt to avoid the dollar. The big question is the United States reserve currency status soon in jeopardy? Here's what Alan Greenspan says. Gold still represents the ultimate form of payment in the world, and this is why you should own it out, and this is why you should not save money in whatever your fiat currency is of your country. Gold and silver is the safest way, the safest asset to hold on to in your possession in any circumstance. Fiat money is as extremis is accepted by nobody. Fiat money in extremis, so outside of governments, etc., and first world countries that are still standing, etc., it is accepted by nobody. It's worthless. A fiat dollar is worthless unless everybody agrees that they can continue trading it for something. As soon as confidence starts getting eroded, all of a sudden you need wheelbarrows full of cash, just like in Venezuela. This is exactly what happened. Gold is always accepted, Alan Greenspan says. Gold and silver are always seen in the eyes of people as worth something because you can make stuff out of them. You can make gold and silver are used in electronics. All sorts of things are used in. So from a manufacturing point of view, they're valuable. And people over the last 6,000 years have always found gold and silver to be useful for something. And that's why it is still considered the real money that backs everything else. So if you want to be prepared, one way to hedge against what's coming, to be prepared, and you need to be prepared on multiple fronts, is to own and buy gold and silver. Silver is very, very cheap right now. Just start buying an ounce at a time. About $16 US, about $25 Canadian at this point in time, something around there, plus or minus. And so it's a very, very cheap investment at this point in time. The first thing you need to be aware of is you need to have your heart right. You need to know Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. He's coming back soon. There's going to be troublesome times coming. And we're going to be, it's going to be fearful times coming. There's going to be stuff coming that's going to cause men's hearts to fail them for fear of the things that are coming upon them. So know Jesus Christ. He died on a cross 2,000 years ago for my sin and your sin, and he's coming back soon. You need to be prepared with food and water. If an economic collapse happens, there won't be any food in the grocery store, so you need to be prepared with that. And then ultimately, to come out on the other side of an economic collapse, you need hard assets to get yourself back up and running. And one easy way is to get gold and silver. It's a great investment. It's a great investment for your retirement, even if economic collapse never occurs. And it's just generally a good asset to have. You don't lose value with gold and silver if you own them. So, guys, I'll leave it there for today. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next video.